Hi guys, welcome back. Today it's time again for another recent reads video. I have been getting back into reading and I'm hoping that it stays like it is and that I get back into the swing of things. Today I want to present 3 books to you that I read recently, and I can tell you this for now that I thoroughly enjoyed all 3 of them. The first one I want to talk about is one I listened to on audio, and that is Becoming by Michelle Obama. I know I'm kind of late on this hype train, but I'm glad I finally picked it up because it's one that's been really interesting and really nice to read listen, I would say, on my commute. And I mean, I learned a lot about America, a lot of stuff that I didn't know. I learned a lot about its political system, but I think I also learned a lot about how incredible it actually is that Michelle Obama became the person she is and overcame so many hurdles that were put in front of her, both by the society but also the political system in place in the US, and became who she is. That's essentially what the book is about. Firstly, it reads or it listens in a way that is very conversational, and I think it was even stronger because I listened to it on audiobook and she was reading it. It really felt like we were sitting next to each other and she was telling me the story. But also, I guess if you expect her to go in detail into some of the political happenings that were going on during the time where her husband was president, that's something you'll only get in part, and that's something that I personally enjoyed. I'm not really into political memoirs and things like this, and I think how she stroked that balance of giving us some of her personal feelings and how her becoming who she is was undoubtedly impacted by the stuff she was going through while her husband was president. I really enjoyed it. I think she is being quite open in this book. I really appreciated how open she was about the fact that from pretty much since she can remember it, she's always been very skeptical of politics, and especially how politics are not really working for people like her, for women, people of color, people who come from poorer background, and she's very open about that. And through this memoir, I also learned a lot about what were her motivations and all the charity work that she did while she was First Lady, which is stuff, I don't know about you, but from someone like me coming from Europe, I didn't really hear a lot being talked about what she was doing. Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like I should go into any details of stuff that she's talking about because I think that's also part of the joy of reading this book. But I can just say this, like, I appreciated her honesty. It was very fun to read. It's very conversational. Sometimes it's very light and funny. Sometimes it's incredibly sad. And she's also not scared to go into stuff that is sad and that is messy. And that's something I quite appreciated because I was a bit scared that it would all be too idealized, and she's definitely not going into that direction. So yeah, if you're one of the probably 10 people in the world like me who hadn't read it before, I highly encourage you to. The next book I finished was Don't Touch My Hair by Emma Dabiri. And this is one that I've also listened to on audio and that I've been listening for such a long time. At this point, I just really needed to get back into it. And it was perfect because since March 1st, the Irish Readathon is running and the author is a person of color and she's Irish. This is all about black hair and how it is intertwined with basically the societal history of Africa and people from the diaspora. And it was strange at first because I was kind of expecting it to be a memoir by Emma Dabiri, but she actually goes into her experience with learning to like her own hair and really fighting to get past these very colonialistic ideals of what hair should look like, and also her journey in learning to care for her hair and how difficult it was for her to actually access that kind of information, because mostly the products that you find in shops are not tailored to black hair. So that was a smaller part of the book where she goes into her own experience. Also, obviously, growing up black in Ireland. That was a very short part, actually, and that's, I think, where I stopped reading the book, because then it got very much into more the societal aspects and how black hair is seen, for example, in relationships between black people, but also between mixed couples. There was a lot about how the traditional braiding of black hair has both a very important societal meaning, but also has played some really cool parts in history that I'm not going to talk about because it's, I think, nicer to discover it for yourself. And this part is really dense. It's highly researched, and there's also an excellent chapter about traditional black hairstyles and how they've been appropriated by white people, and all the problematic stuff around that, also to get intertwined together with stuff like that happening within Hollywood and like pop music. But it's definitely a part where I needed to really be concentrated when I read this. Like, although it's quite a short book, it took me quite a long time to get through because I felt like there was a lot to chew on. Sometimes it was even a bit too dense for me, and I actually dropped the speed of the audiobook because I really needed it to sit with me. But yeah, I really enjoyed all the stuff that I learned through that. But then this sometimes clashed a bit with the author's conversational style. Like sometimes she would have a really conversational sentence, like suddenly talking to the reader, or like making fun of someone that she was talking about, and it felt really disjointed. So it was times where I felt like, huh? So that was a bit strange for me, honestly, within the reading experience. But I think it's incredibly important to read, and I definitely don't regret I really took my time with it. So if this is anything that you find interesting, give it a go, because as I said, it's not a long book. And I also recommend the audiobook version because I really like how the author reads the book herself. Finally, the last book I want to talk about today is a mystery novel. And it's The Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. At last I read this, I think I bought this maybe almost 2 years ago. I think if you scroll back into my videos, there's actually a book haul where I talk about this. It's been such a long time, and I've been intimidated by how big it is. It's almost 500 pages. But if this is something that scares you about this book, it shouldn't, because you really breeze through it. The interesting premise of this book is that it's basically a book within a book, a mystery within a mystery. We follow this woman called Susan Ryland. She is one of the editors in a publishing house called Cloverleaf Books, and she really throws us into her story, actually, by almost directly addressing the reader that she has gotten this manuscript of a new mystery novel by this really famous author called Alan Conway, and she tells us that reading this novel, this manuscript, actually completely changed the turn of her life. And then after probably like 10 pages, we get thrown into the manuscript itself, which is, as I said, a mystery novel in itself. This mystery novel reminds me very strongly of Agatha Christie's books that follow Miss Marple in this very sleepy town in England, because that's basically the setting. It's set after the Second World War, and we meet all this cast of characters that are very cliched for this type of book. You have the vicar, you have the doctor, you have the person who owns the local shop, and so on. And you have obviously the very wealthy manor owner. And most interestingly, the detective that we follow in this book is called Atticus Pund, and he is supposed to be a German refugee, wink wink. So there's very strong parallels to Agatha Christie's work, to Hercule Poirot. Now the crazy thing is that in this overarching plot, we then learn that this famous author, Alan Conway, has actually died. And the last 2 chapters of this manuscript are missing. So we go through this manuscript as readers and we try to solve this mystery. But the last chapters that have the resolution are missing. And so along with the editor, Susan Ryland, we want to find these pages because we want to find out who is the murderer. So this book is very meta in that way. It's meta on a level that it has so many references to Agatha Christie. It's like completely ridiculous. Like at a point where in the beginning I thought like, is this a ripoff? But then, you know, this is what the author is trying to do. And he's playing with the reader and the reader's expectations of stuff that we already know within the mystery genre. And at the same time, it's meta because there's this book within this book. And we feel just like the woman in this overarching plot and we want to find out what's going on. So I would say the overarching plot is more like a thriller type mystery. And the mystery within is very much this classical small English village mystery that I really enjoyed. In the beginning, I was a bit scared that I would enjoy only the mystery inside. And actually, we spent quite a long time with it until we go back into the present. So I was a bit scared that by the time I would go back into the present, I would not like the storyline. But the author really managed it to make both really compelling. So yeah, I honestly quite enjoyed it. I enjoyed the main character, Susan Ryland, because I think she's the kind of character we don't get enough in books. She's like 40 something. She isn't married. She knows what she wants. She has a boyfriend. And I thought that was really refreshing. And I think, anyway, if you're a mystery lover, you'll probably love this. This is just written for mystery lovers, honestly. And I am really glad I finally got to it. Yeah, if you like mysteries and if you like Agatha Christie, if you like Miss Marple, you should definitely check it out. Because for all the references alone, to Agatha and the tropes that she uses in her books and the kind of characters she depicts. Alone for that, the book is worth reading. So yeah, highly enjoyed it and would recommend. So that's it. That's the 3 books that I read recently. Let me know, firstly, if you read any of these books or if you're planning on reading them. But also tell me what you've been reading. Have you been participating in the Irish Readathon? Let me know how your reading's been going, if you've had any favorite reads in the last weeks or month. And yeah, I hope in the meantime that you're reading great books, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!